Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today we are going to get into some book recommendations as we always do, but this time around we are doing nonfiction self-help kind of books. If you've stuck around my channel for a while, then you would know that I am a licensed mental health professional and I wanted to use that education that I have because it's valuable. Obviously, I use it every single day in my job, but I rarely come from a professional lens on my channel because this is not a professional environment for me. Therapists are human and I am a human with a full personality, not just being a therapist. However, I wanted to be a little bit more of a therapist than I usually am on my channel today, so I can recommend some self-help books from the lens of a licensed therapist. So you know the type of self-help books that are going to actually be effective and are backed by theories that I believe in as a mental health professional, the ones that I use. I have a group of my top 10 here and you really just can't go wrong with any of them. Some of them are for niche things, some of them are more general, but overall all of these personally helped me and I've recommended them to my clients too. But before we get into the book recs, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Beducated. And if you are unfamiliar with Beducated, let me tell you, they are the authority on sex education for a new age. From a mental health lens and as someone who hears about the intimate details of people's life, I don't think we talk about sex near enough, especially when I work with people who are talking about their relationships. People shy away talking about sex even to their therapist. And I'm here to say there's nothing shameful or wrong about talking about sex or wanting to have a healthy relationship. And intimacy is involved there too. That is where Beducated comes in. They have a ton of amazing courses on everything from how to talk about sex with your partner to how to explore more kinky things in the bedroom, all the way down to not being in a partnership, how to explore solo as well. This is evidence-based relationship education from professionals. If you want to gain sexual confidence or explore yourself more intimately, there are amazing courses on Beducated for that. Specifically, there's a course on sexual confidence by Luna Matatas that is amazing. She will teach you how to state your wants and needs, set boundaries, and be more confident being vocal in the bedroom and outside of it. And obviously, before I accept a sponsorship on my channel, I do look into it, and I am so pleased to report that when I watched the courses on Beducated, it was pinging around with all of my therapeutic language, all the things that I would co-sign and say to my clients. And if you are interested in checking out Beducated, you can use my code, which is just my name, Hailey Hughes, to get 50% off an annual subscription, which is crazy. 50% off for an entire year. And it's completely risk-free. If you don't end up liking it, there is a 14-day money-back guarantee. Thank you so much to Beducated for sponsoring this video. And now let's go ahead and get into the approved self-help recs. I will start out with the basic rec that probably everyone will know because you've probably seen it talked about on TikTok by people who maybe don't always know what they're saying. Please don't get your mental health education from TikTok. Please, I'm begging you. Or ChatGPT. Please, those are tools and they're great, but talk to a therapist. This is the one that everybody knows and I do recommend it, and it is The Body Keeps the Score. There are some really triggering elements of this book, and some of the research methods and disclosures that the researcher and clinician who wrote this book uses are not ethical in the slightest. However, it did lead to some pretty massive findings on how we store trauma in the body. This book kind of walks you through different case examples, how people will store trauma in the body and it affects them for years and years and years without them understanding how past trauma is driving their actions. And as a somatic therapist, this is what I work with. This is my bread and butter. People come to me and I literally will tell them, I don't care about the content. I mean, I do care. I'm always curious and I want to understand my clients, but I don't need to know the narrative or the content of what happened to someone in order to help them, because I get all the information I need from their nervous system, from physical sensations and emotions that they report in their body. This talks a lot about that nervous system regulation, how that process works. If you're interested in that, know that this is a hard read, but it is also extremely valuable if you can handle it. If you are just trying to dip your toe in, I feel that the other recommendations in this video that you might not have heard of, that might be a little less scientific and more gentle, would be better for you. This next one I recommend to my clients all the time, especially because I see people in like 20s range, and when people hit that like 23 to 27 age range and all of this stuff starts coming up about wanting to find yourself and wanting to truly know yourself, this is the book that I will recommend, and that is All About Love by Bell Hooks. I actually want to do a deep dive on everything that I learned from this book because it really changed my life and the way that I see myself and the way that I approach relationships. I talked about it in my video where I told you everything that I learned about myself and my relationship over the course of my divorce. I will link that video up above and down below if you somehow missed it. This book has not only been transformative for me, but also for my clients. I talk about it with my clients all the time. It examines in a bunch of different factors, from like the lens of spirituality and integrity and trauma and all of these things, how we project love, how we receive love, and how we learn to do those things from our family of origin. So it walks you through some clarifying examples of how you might see love and where you might have learned that from. I love Bell Hooks, although there is a little bit of like religious-y stuff at the end, which might not jive with everybody. It didn't super align with my beliefs, but regardless, I think it's very valuable, and be on the lookout for a longer video specifically about this book from me soon. Next up, this is one that I don't feel like I've recommended on my channel before, but I genuinely love it so much. It is Sorry I'm Late, I Didn't Want to Come, One Introvert's Year of Saying Yes by Jessica Pan. And I feel like this book is about testing your capacity. If you find yourself being really introverted to your detriment, really avoidant, canceling plans at the last minute out of anxiety, not because you want to be at home, then this could really help you out. This woman basically does an experiment where she puts herself way outside the bounds of her capacity, and I don't recommend doing that. It worked for her in this book, but you can just like read her account of doing that and imagine yourself in this scenario. I think that's debatably gentler and more helpful. She's kind of pressing on her limit of what she thinks she can handle, and she ends up surprising herself and really changing her life, breaking patterns of avoidance and anxiety, especially socially. I've recommended this one to a couple clients as well, and I've gotten really great feedback about their reading experience of it. I read it at a time in college where I felt like I couldn't leave my bed for days on end. I felt really trapped and depressed, and this helped me a ton. Next up, I got another one for my girly pops, or boy pops, or they themy pops, in that sweet spot of your 20s. If you are stuck in your 20s and you're feeling like you're going nowhere, you're looking for a self-help book, don't turn to Mel Robbins. Pick up The Defining Decade. This book is all about why your 20s matter and why they're essential, and I think Meg Jay does a really good job of balancing out the understanding nature of her hearing you out and saying like, yeah, this time is really, really hard. You're making a lot of decisions that will have a huge impact on the rest of your life, but also giving you a little kick in the pants, like a little pressure and motivation in the right ways to pursue things that are going to make it easier for you later on when you're trying to build that dream life for yourself down the road. She goes at this topic from multiple different angles: work and career life, relationship and love, and also your body, mind, and soul, kind of like the more trauma-informed lens. Although I will say this book is not super trauma-informed and it's not as gentle as some of the other books. This one is more of like a pressure-filled motivator than a trauma trauma-informed, like, cry fest, but I do think it is really, really helpful if you're feeling that mid-20s stuckness. Next up, we have a classic, getting my psychology degree and getting my master's. I think I was assigned to read this 3 times, and I did read it all 3 times, and I enjoyed it all 3 times, and that is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This is all about hope and resilience and finding meaning in your life even when you're in a destitute situation. Obviously, Viktor Frankl, if you know anything about him, you probably know that he was in a concentration camp, I believe Auschwitz, in Nazi Germany. So that's a horrifying, hopeless, helpless situation that is completely unjust and could just tank you right down into high dorsal tone. If you know anything about the polyvagal theory, that's how I would describe Viktor Frankl's entire existence in those years of his life. But he recounts how he dug himself out of that and how he found this sense of hope and resilience even in the darkest time that a human could ever imagine. It's extremely inspiring, and I also think you can take some of what he applied in a very extreme situation to less extreme situations that we face today. As a therapist, it's very, very easy to co-sign this because pretty much every therapist has read this and loved it, but it doesn't get touted as a self-help book that often. I feel like, please, please, for the love of God, do not pick up Girl Wash Your Face. Please read this, okay? I don't need you to hear an influencer telling you to wash your face. I need you to hear about someone who's been in Nazi Germany, so when you feel like you can't clock into your 3-hour shift, you can just get up and do it. And I know it's hard to clock into a 3-hour shift sometimes. Okay, I was the drive-through girl at Raising Cane's from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. Trust me, I get it, but sometimes we just gotta clock in, girls. We just gotta do it. If Viktor Frankl can do it, so can we. Next up, I want to talk about one of my favorite books ever, and definitely one of my favorite books that I've read this year. I picked this one up on a whim, literally because I thought it was beautiful. However, I had no idea the substance and the absolute gem that was waiting for me inside these pages, and that is Women Living Deliciously by Florence Given. You can see I've tabbed this one up. My dog literally ate part of the back cover because it was sitting on my nightstand for so long, and I guess he was like, girl, get this out of here, because he chomped it up. I've highlighted so many things in here. I've forced so many people in my life to read this, including quite a few of my clients. I cannot tell you the amount of times I sent the link to this book to a client, just like, read it, read it, read it. And the girls are loving it. Women Living Deliciously goes about very modern problems, very modern things that keep women stuck, and examines first why we feel stuck by these things and how it's not our fault and we don't have to blame ourselves, but also in later parts that we have the agency to get ourselves out of it. It tells you really small, practical, actionable items that you can do to start making your life better and get unstuck as soon as the second that you read this book. Like, I love every piece of reference material listed in here. Florence Given cites amazing sources with therapy modalities that I use in my practice every single day. If you cannot afford therapy and you want to know the self-help book that's going to get you as close as possible to the content that a therapist would tell you, although nothing can really replace the value of a therapeutic relationship because that's where the healing happens. But if you want to know advice from a therapeutic lens, this is the most accurate that I can give you. It talks about people pleasing and setting boundaries, not only where that comes from, but how to address it. If you end up watching that course on Beducated, this would be a really great book to read along with it or to enforce it, to help with journal prompts and things like that. Actually, I would love if Florence Given would come out with a journal to go along with this, because girl, I was journaling pages and pages and pages, crazy like Alexander Hamilton after I read this book. Like, I was obsessed. Next up, I have a rec that's a little bit different because it's a memoir. It's not your typical self-help book, but I think a lot of people, especially if you're coming from a mental health lens, can get a lot out of it, particularly in dispelling shame and our lack of control around psychological disorders. And that is Brain on Fire by Susanna Callahan. This is about a woman's mental break. She was living a very successful, normal, upper middle class life. She's just a 20s white woman, and then her brain breaks. Like, she has a major event internally and psychologically, and it leads to a year of torment. She tells the story of her descent into madness. It really, really reminds me of The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, but obviously this is a true story. If you resonate with The Bell Jar, you will resonate with this even more. I promise you, it's incredible. It's deeply, deeply moving, and you just see as the reader along the entire way how none of this is Susanna's fault. Like, none of it is even remotely in her control, and she's constantly blaming herself for it. And when you're blaming yourself for things, it helps to find forgiveness in other people and then apply that to yourself as well. So it's a little exercise in externalizing by reading this one. I highly recommend it. Although this one is heavy, okay? Like, Body Keeps the Score is triggering. I would say this one is triggering as well. On the same line of psychological disorders and the shame that we might feel around them. And when I say psychological disorders, I mean like anxiety, depression, trauma, like anything in the DSM is a psychological disorder. I know that sounds like a very technical term, but I don't like the term mental illness, so I use psychological disorder instead. This book, The Power of Different by Gail Saltz, goes through a lot of different categories of psychological disorder. Let me see which ones are mentioned in here. I know ADHD and autism spectrum disorder, schizophrenia, dyslexia, anxiety, depression, and bipolar. So it goes through all those different disorders, one in every chapter, and breaks down the hidden superpowers, the hidden gifts that come along with each what we would think of as an affliction. But really, it's just a very reasonable adaptation to your environment. Of course, it can feel like torment, but when you start to unlock the little hidden gifts, it makes it not only easier to cope with the symptoms, but I feel, and I see in my clients, that those symptoms start to ease as well. So if you want a little bit of, again, shame dispelling, hidden superpower finding of your symptoms, this book is really good. And trust me, when I first started reading this in grad school, I was like, this is bullshit. There's literally no way my anxiety is helpful in any way. I want to take the little anxious girl that lives in my brain like inside out too and stab her. Like, I don't believe it. And then I read this book and I was like, okay, wait. Wait. So if you're skeptical, I invite you to be skeptical. I invite you to be skeptical about any of these recommendations. I'm just one girl, and yes, I have credentials, but a lot of people have credentials, and not everything that works for me is gonna work for you. Not every therapeutic modality is gonna work for every person. That's why you gotta shop around, find your right fit. I'm not saying this is gonna change your life, but I am saying it helped me. And if you're feeling resistance to it, that is healthy and normal. So I invite you to be with it. Next up, we're dipping our toes back into trauma, and that is with What My Bones Know by Stephanie Fu. I'm actually reading this right now with a couple of my therapist friends, and we are just astounded by the level of depth in this book. It's incredible. It's all about Stephanie Fu healing her trauma, and she has accounts from her therapist in here about how they worked through these pieces together. If you want to, again, do an exercise in externalizing where you're reading someone else's journey, but you might be relating to it in some ways, this is a really, really great one for that. It talks about trauma in a really healthy, anti-shaming, gentle, beautiful way, and I cannot wait to finish it because I am just addicted to reading it. Like, this is the way that I wish all therapists would operate. As a trauma-informed somatic professional, this is it. This is literally it. And the last self-help recommendation that I have for you guys from a therapist is my girl, Brené Brown. Hook 'em. She's also a UT grad, so we gotta love her. I like all of her books, but my favorite of hers is I Thought It Was Just Me, But It Isn't. And this is all about her work on shame, specifically in women, and how it can feel so isolating. We blame ourselves, we get buried in our shame, but it's not just you, girl. It's all of us. If you want to see the data, Brene will show you the data raw so you can interpret it on your own, and then she breaks down her interpretation and applies it to the daily struggles and experiences of shame that you might have in your own life. It is so moving. Like, she'll kind of get you out of nowhere. Sometimes you think you're just reading like, oh, psychological study, so interesting. And then she's like, and this is how we know that you are valuable. And I'm like, oh, motherfucker, like now I'm crying. She is just really good at doing that. I love Brene Brown's voice. I think she delivers self-help content in a really informed but really digestible way. I will just always be her absolute biggest fan. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 self-help book recommendations from me, a licensed therapist. And if you want 3 more of these recommendations, I will have them up on my Patreon, as I always do when I have sit-down recommendation videos. There's always bonus recs up for my Patreon girls. So that link to the extended cut of this video will be down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and give me a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. This isn't always the content that I make, but I am considering making more of it. Let me know if you would like to see that. And also let me know down below if you've read any of these. I would love to talk about that and kiki about these books in the comments. And of course, thank you so much again to Beducated for sponsoring this video. If you want to check out that course that I mentioned or any of their wonderful courses, go down below and use code HaileyHughes for 50% off of your annual subscription. And of course, as always, don't forget to go to therapy and read a book this week, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!